Hi, folks. We will be getting started in about 4 minutes, so just hang on. Okay, folks, I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's 7:30. Welcome. I'm Vivian New, the president of the Santa Clara Valley chapter of the California Native Plant Society, and I want to welcome you to our talk tonight on climate change, what works and what you can do, by Elaine Salinger. But before the talk, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background, but we will start with a land acknowledgement. And we would like to acknowledge that the work done by the Santa Clara Valley chapter of CNPS lies in the homeland of the Muwekma Ohlone, the Amamutsun tribal band, the Tamian Nation, and the Ramayatush Ohlone. This is land that was theirs for thousands of years and was taken forcibly from them. Despite 2 centuries of oppression and genocide, they still live and thrive in this area today. We acknowledge and respect them for their land stewardship, their culture, language, and humanity. The Santa Clara Valley chapter of CNPS hopes to learn from them and support their work to restore traditional practices and heal from historical trauma. And I wanted to welcome everybody, but especially those of you who are joining us for your first talk. If you are new to our talks, we would love to know how you found out about us and where you are. So if you don't mind, if you could just put that in chat, we'd really love to hear from you. And our talks are always put on by a team. So our team tonight is me, the host. We also have our QA moderator, Madeline Morrow, our YouTube moderator, Kelvin Liu, and our speaker, Elaine Salinger. If you're not familiar with the California Native Plant Society, we're a nonprofit environmental organization. We were founded in 1965. We have over 10,000 members all over the state and actually beyond the state's borders, because our 35 chapters not only encompass all of California, but we also include Baja California. Our chapter covers Santa Clara County and southern San Mateo County. And our mission is to save California's native plants and habitats through science, education, conservation, and gardening. If you're not currently a member and you would like to join our movement, and we would love to have you, you could join easily by going to cnps.org/join. And once you are a member, you'll receive 2 wonderful journals, Artemisia, which is more science-oriented articles about native plants, and Flora, which is general interest in information about native plants. You'll also receive our Blazing Star chapter newsletter, which has great articles about local events and also all the things that are going on in the chapter. And as a member, you will have access to members-only events and activities, and you'll also receive discounts at various local nurseries. And speaking of nurseries, our chapter is primarily funded by our own nursery, which is located at Hidden Villa in Los Altos Hills. We have been taking online orders for delivery only over the summer, but that's about to change. So if you are interested in purchasing plants from us, you can do that online. The URL is right there on your screen. And then you can either have them delivered to you if you live between Belmont and San Jose, or you can pick them up at the nursery starting on September 1st. And all those proceeds go to our chapter to support things like this talk and all our other activities. You can also buy t-shirts, books, and more. And we're always adding more things to the nursery. So please stop in, and we would really appreciate it if you wanted to buy some plants from us. We also have our annual fall plant sale coming up, and this year we are excited to have an in-person sale again. We will not be able to accommodate people in the nursery. It's a little bit too tight quarters, and with COVID, it's just not practical. So you will have to buy your plants online. The same information as in my previous slide is where you would go to buy them, and then you'll be able to pick them up during the sale. But the sale will include a seed exchange. We'll be selling books and t-shirts. Coyote Brush Studios, if you're familiar with them, they have a whole variety of native plant art and tattoos, temporary tattoos, all kinds of really fun things with a native plant theme. Grassroots Ecology, which is another nursery, will be joining us as well, and more. And we will be having ticketed entry, so we are really focused on keeping everybody safe, and we will have specific times that you can come in and pick up your plants and look at all the things that we have on site for you. So please go to our website or join our chapter news to get information as we finish that planning process, but that will be on October 9th. And we have a lot of other fun events coming up. The next one is going to be our photography group show and tell. And if you are a photographer, or if you just like to look at plant pictures, it's welcome. It's open and welcome for everybody. But photographers are certainly welcome to join the group and then share their pictures as part of that event. Our next talk is going to be the first week of September, and that will be by Lisa Myers about birds in the garden. And then the week after that, we will have Elaine back again with us to share her amazing garden. She lives in San Mateo, and she has this it's just an incredible garden. So, but she'll be focusing on the rainwater collection and storage, as well as giving a little tour of the garden. So I hope you'll be able to join us in 2 weeks. And then the week after that, we have another talk coming up on the Blue Oak Ranch Reserve, which is one of the UC preserves, and that will be by Zach Harlow, who is the director there. And then in September, on September 19th, we have an in-person event. It is a field trip at Lake Cunningham Park in San Jose. It's a beginner's bird and plant ID walk. It has limited attendance, so you will have to get a ticket it's all free, but you will have to RSVP for one of the spots on there. And you can find out more on our meetup site or on our website, cnps-scv.org. And you can also get notices about upcoming events by joining our chapter news mailing list. And to do that, all you have to do is send email to this address here. It's a Google group. You'll be able to find that address on our website, cnps-scv.org. And I think Madeline may be putting that into chat as well. And if you enjoy these virtual events and you're interested in helping out, we can always use more help. The QA moderator position that you'll be seeing Madeline taking care of, and our YouTube moderator that Kelvin's going to be doing we can use more help with those positions. All you have to be able to do is use a keyboard, mouse, be able to switch windows, copy and paste. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please send Madeline a message. Her email is a little bit obscured here. It's madelinemorrow@earthlink.net. You'll be able to find that on our website, and I think that'll probably be available in chat in a little while as well. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If your microphone is not currently muted, please mute it. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them into chat at any time, and they will be read to Elaine at the end of her talk. And this program is currently being shown on YouTube and on Zoom. It will be available for watching on YouTube immediately. So if you want to share it with friends afterwards, you'll be able to do that. And if you want to just review it yourself, there's a lot of great stuff that Elaine's going to be talking about. And so I wanted to welcome Elaine. I've known Elaine for a few years now. We are fellow docents at Edgewood Park. She is an amazing person. I find her incredibly inspirational. She's very active with Sister District, and she is passionate about climate change, a topic that is just constantly on my mind. And tonight, she is going to share some of the things she's found and provide you with some ways to address climate change. So Elaine, I am going to turn it over to you now. Thank you so much for doing this for us.
Before I get started, I really want to thank Vivian and Madeline Morrow and for scheduling this and helping. These people are incredible. The devotion and time they put into these talks, choosing speakers, I mean, they're really incredible. So hats off to them. I just admire both of you so much. I really do. So my name's Elaine Salinger. I live in San Mateo. Please feel free to reach out to me, and I will have my contact information in the slide. So I'm going to go ahead and start screen sharing. Okay, so this is my garden on the left in March, and on the right, that's me on the lower hillside, carefully tweezering, and I mean tweezering out the non-native invasives, leaving the natives, helping them to propagate. I've been doing this for about 3 years. The results are amazing. Vivian's been over and seen some of the crazy rare stuff I have in my yard. I'm on serpentine. I spend hours working in the garden, and these hours are my happiest days, hours of the day. It feeds my soul, and I know that I'm helping the rare native plants and animals. But I have to tell you, recently I heard a podcast on KALW called One Planet, and Professors Art Shapiro and Matthew Forrester made a point at the end of the podcast that pollinators will not survive climate change no matter how much habitat restoration we do. And I heard this and I sat down and just sobbed. It was just overwhelming. So I turned around and I decided to go ahead and start doing these presentations because no one seems to be talking about this. So this is me. You'll notice my hair is blue now. I have COVID hair. Here's my contact information. And so I want you to know wherever I go, I talk about climate change, and everyone talks about individual action as a solution. And I want you to know that individual action cannot stop climate change. It's too big. And so today I'm going to show you how we can stop climate change. And I'm going to show you what you can do in a simple 2-minute action that will make a difference. As you listen to this talk, I hope that you will remember that knowledge is power. And that I hope at the end of this talk, you will feel hope, because we can take action when we feel hopeful and powerful. And I also really need you to understand that when we take action, that actually helps us to feel more hopeful. So I'm going to ask for a brief time that you set aside your opinions and fears about climate change mitigation, and allow me to describe the simplest, most effective, socially equitable, and politically achievable action to stop climate change. And I want to say right off the bat, I have nothing to say to climate change deniers. This presentation is for people who believe that climate change is real, that human activity is a big contributing factor, and who want to do something. This presentation is for Democrats, Republicans, independents, and people who do not identify with any political party. And I just want to show you, this slide is from a survey that was done in October 2020. So right before the November election. We know the rhetoric that was going on, but what this slide shows is that 82% of Republicans under the age of 54 believe in climate change and want the government to do something about this. And I'm showing you this because a lot of people believe that the political situation is hopeless. And I want you to know that that is not true. That's what you hear in the media, but it is not true. So I belong to a group called Citizens Climate Lobby that's been around since 2007. We're citizens just like you and me who want our legislators in Washington, D.C. and all around the world to pass laws to stop climate change. Individual action is important, but it is not about changing light bulbs. It's about changing policy. And I ask you to hear me out. I ask you to allow me to offer you hope and a different perspective. So the word lobbying can have a bad reputation because of paid lobbying by big business. But I want you to understand that lobbying can also be done by citizens, by volunteers like you and me who want to make the world a better place. And in a little bit, I'm going to explain how to lobby effectively and efficiently. So this is the only doom and gloom slide I'm going to show. I generally don't cover this because I think it robs us of our power. I'm just going to say we're slowly heading for disaster. We've known about it for 70 years. It gets worse every year. The earth is heating up. It's running a fever. So I want to take the temperature in the room before I get started. And I want everyone to unmute themselves. I know this is going to horrify the hosts, but I want you to unmute yourself and just kind of shout out, or maybe maybe Madeline can just, maybe you can post it in the chat and Madeline can just kind of tell me what number people are feeling. Are you feeling like you're a number 1, it's hopeless, you're overwhelmed? Number 2, you know you're doing things in your daily life, but you understand that it's too small. Or 3, yes, you know exactly what to do and you're doing it right now. So lay it on me.
Kelvin, can you check YouTube, please? I'm so far pretty much seeing 2s.
Okay. Is anyone a 3?
I don't see any 3s.
Okay.
Oh, one in there. But by the way, Elaine, I just want to mention, I see 2 sort of black squares obscuring part of your slides. I don't know if that's.
Is this?
Yeah, there's one right for your mouse. Oh, now it followed your mouse. At least the thing I see, followed your mouse. When you lowered your mouse, it moved the black square.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
still there,
great.
but it's at the very bottom now.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't know how to
Elaine,
completely get, yes.
I
Oh,
see
there-
two ones, and 1, 2 to 3. Everything else is
Two.
twos.
Okay, great, good, okay.
Let's.
Uh-oh, now my slides are not. What happened when I moved that down there? My slides are not advancing all of a sudden. What happened?
Oh no, I'm sorry, Elaine.
I'm going to stop screen sharing and go back and see if I can. Okay, there we go. Great. Total panic. I'm going to introduce you to a climate change simulator website created by MIT Sloan called En-ROADS. And I'm going to first show you a 2-minute introductory video, and then I'm going to do a demonstration showing the effects of 18 major solutions to climate change on global temperature every 20 years through 2100. So we're going to do this.
I'm Andrew Jones of Climate Interactive, and I'll show you around En-ROADS, the global simulator we built with MIT Sloan to help people learn how various climate solutions, say a carbon price, would affect outcomes such as temperature. On the left is the main graph that shows coal, oil, gas, renewables, and nuclear, and on the right is the main impact, the global temperature increase by 2100. Down at the bottom are various sliders. One can affect, for example, not just carbon price, but say energy efficiency in transport, energy efficiency in buildings and industry. You click the buttons and thousands of equations in a system dynamics model immediately calculate the impact. En-ROADS works in 2 modes. The first is basic mode, where a business person, policymaker, student, community climate leader can see many examples of climate solutions and choose one. Our team at Climate Interactive and MIT Sloan built En-ROADS with the best available climate science and energy, land use, agricultural economics with data from the IEA, the EIA, the IPCC, and comparing our results against the Energy Modeling Forum, the SSPs. The second mode is advanced mode, where a more technical user may want to set an exact carbon price. For example, here, not at $73 a ton, but exactly $35 a ton. The goal of the model is to frame and support better conversations about how to address climate change. We embed this simulator in workshops on strategy and in role-playing games. We use it to ground thinking in the best available science, focus on solutions and actions, and move beyond polarized conversations.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you the actual website. And before I get started, I just want to point out that En-ROADS looks at global and national policies. At the local level, we do need to do whatever we can. You know, electric cars, no gas in new construction, increasing energy efficiency. We certainly need to do that. But this website is looking at global solutions. So I want, at this point, the hosts are going to kill me again, but I want people to look at this, and you'll see there are 18 different possible global solutions to climate change. I want people to shout out their favorite solution to climate change. whatever you've thought for a while is really going to do it.
Transport.
What is it?
Transport.
Transportation.
Population.
Okay. Well, so let me look at.
Population.
I'll look at,
I
at
agree.
transportation first.
Population.
So we're going to make transportation more energy efficient, and we're going to make sure that all new cars, buses, and trucks are electric. And what you'll see is that the average global temperature came down, 0.3 degrees centigrade. So a good start, but not quite as good as you would think.
Renewables.
Carbon price.
Okay, so first I'm going to try to take things in order. So someone said population. To tell you the truth, I don't usually include population because it's very controversial. But you'll see that if we can slow population growth, the average global temperature comes down 1/10 of 1 degree centigrade. So a good thing to do, but not the silver bullet we're looking for. I do want you to know, though, that the ways to slow population growth are actually not controversial. They are keeping girls in school and making birth control available. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
No,
So what was another one?
Renewables.
Renewables. Okay. So that brings down the average global temperature 0.2 degrees centigrade. I don't think anyone in this room is going to suggest nuclear because, well, anyway, maybe I'm wrong, but I just want to show you, a lot of people believe in nuclear. I want to show you what nuclear does. 0.1 degrees. So again, not the silver bullet.
What
What
about
else?
no oil?
No oil. So who said that?
Madeline.
Hi, Madeline. I thought I recognized your voice. So Madeline, I have to tell you, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, the answer's got to be no coal, almost no oil, and almost no methane, no natural gas. So look at this. We can't completely get rid of oil, right? So we're going to be realistic. We're almost getting rid of it. It drops the average global temperature 1/10 of 1 degree. Now let's completely get rid of coal. And let's almost get rid of natural gas, which, by the way, is methane. It's a big PR campaign to call it natural gas. And look at that. Those three solutions bring the average global temperature down 1/2 of 1 degree. A good start, but not the silver bullet. And I was shocked when I saw this because I thought, okay, these are the three things that have caused the problem. You get rid of them, for sure that's going to stop it, for sure. Now, no one has called out afforestation. Afforestation means that if we put the slider all the way over to the right, it means that we're planting trees on every possible part of the earth where trees can grow. It's 1 trillion trees or more. A lot of people think that that's going to do it. Look at this. It drops the average global temperature 1/10 of 1 degree. And in a little bit, I'm going to explain why some of these solutions are not so effective. What else?
Carbon price.
Carbon price. Thank you so much. Did I plant you in the audience? I don't know. Who are you?
Nancy.
Nancy. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so watch this, everybody. 1 full degree. 1 full degree. So I need you to understand that. Nancy, thank you.
What about also land and industry emissions, especially methane and other?
Okay, so I don't think we can, excuse me. Got a frog in my throat.
This is truly amazing. This
I don't think we
she's
can
showing
completely.
this MIT.
I'll come watch it with you.
Oh yeah, it's really.
Let me grab my phone.
I'm gonna. Is it okay if we watch it upstairs?
So someone's not muted who should be, but I appreciate how much you're enjoying this. That's great. How you're getting other people to watch it. So we can't stop methane emissions completely, but let's get it down to a reasonable level. And you can see that it drops the average global temperature 0.4 degrees. So again, not the silver bullet, but it's a good thing. What else? Someone said something. Did someone say energy efficiency in buildings and industry? I think I heard that. Okay, well, anyway, I'll just go ahead and show it. And then let's say that all new buildings have only electric, no gas. That's pretty good. It's down another, excuse me, another ½ degree. So now what I'm going to do is I want to show you what happens. We put a price on carbon. We make it a high price. It starts out low, barely noticeable, and it ramps up really quickly. We've brought the average global temperature down 1 full degree. And by the way, the average global temperature is already 1 degree centigrade above where it was pre-industrial. And these numbers with the temperatures refer to the average global temperature over pre-industrial levels. So, so let's say we put a price on carbon, and let's go ahead and get rid of coal, and let's almost get rid of oil, and let's almost get rid of natural gas. Let's go ahead and use bioenergy. Let's use renewables. I'm going to stay away from nuclear because it's pretty controversial. Let's go ahead and use new zero carbon. Let's make transportation super energy efficient. Let's make sure that all new cars, buses, and trucks are electric. Let's make buildings and industry more energy efficient. Let's make sure they only have electric in it, no gas. I'm going to stay away from population growth and economic growth, but you certainly could add that in. Let's stop cutting down so many trees. We can't stop completely, but let's, stop that more or less as much as we can. And let's stop methane release from industry and animals. And, we can't stop it completely, but let's do a good job. And let's go ahead and plant those trillion trees. And now what you can see is that the temperature, the average global temperature, is 1.6 degrees above pre-industrial levels. So that's 0.6 above where we are right now. And this is a livable world. We still have terrible drought in California. We still have terrible fires, but it's a livable world.
Elaine,
And
I'm
let's
just
say, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I think that this question might be really good to be answered on this slide. Several people are asking about what is meant by carbon price. Or are you going to get to that later?
I am going to get to that. I'm going to cover that very completely because that is a really important question. So thank you so much for whomever asked it. Yeah. So let's also say that maybe in about 10 years, some super smart group of people figure out how to sequester carbon and are able to scale it up. Now we're down to 1.3 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. So I want to talk to you while you stare at this. And I do invite you to check out En-ROADS on your own. It is a fascinating website. They have all kinds of training seminars, and you can really go deeply into it. But it is a fantastic website. And it's very much based in science. MIT Sloan spent about 14 years creating it. It is a great website. You have to look at it on your computer, not a tablet or your phone. I want you to see 3 messages from what you can see right now. I want you to see that putting a price on carbon-based energy is by far the single most effective way to stop climate change. I want you to see that we need all possible solutions. And I want you to see that there is hope, that it is possible to drop global temperatures and have a livable world. So I want to stop for a minute, and I want you to think about what you would love to be part of a world on track to make this scenario happen. How does that make you feel? And maybe some of you can put what you're feeling, what you're thinking in the chat. Okay, I'm going to move on. But it's really important that we touch into our emotional state, because everyone who is part of the California Native Plant Society loves the natural world. And the devastation and horrors we are seeing now really take a toll on our souls. Okay. So En-ROADS shows us that putting a price on carbon is the single most effective way to stop climate change. But what does it mean to put a price on carbon? So it means charging a fee on all carbon-based energy as it's brought out of the ground or is imported into the country. And the oil and gas companies pay this fee. The fee starts out small and then ramps up pretty quickly over time. So that over time, the cost of buying oil and gas would increase, making green energy much less expensive relative to carbon-based energy, and making the transition away from oil and gas faster. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we understand that when I say carbon-based energy, I'm talking about oil, gas, diesel, coal, and methane. So I want to make sure you understand why putting a price on carbon is the single most effective way to stop climate change. And does anyone have any ideas, anything you want to, any thoughts you have? Maybe just 2 or 3 people can shout them out. No? Okay. I'm perfectly happy to keep talking the whole time. I just like things to be more interactive. So the main reason is that when something costs more, people look for a cheaper product and they may use less. So for example, if running that dryer costs a lot of money, if it's sunny outside, you might use a clothesline. Money changes people's behavior faster than anything else. The second reason, and this one's not quite so intuitive, but if you really think about it, it's true. Nothing needs to be invented and no infrastructure needs to be built. You pass one law and within a few months, it takes effect. All of the other solutions require infrastructure, planning, and time. So for example, trees need time to grow. Every one of these other solutions requires a lot of infrastructure and planning. And the third reason is that when the price structure is changed in a predictable way, it will jumpstart research into new products. And my favorite example for this is that, you know, when you remember back 30 years ago, who would have thought the internet would appear, or that computers could do what they can do now? So it's really hard for us to imagine, but this will jumpstart research. The fourth thing is that all of these solutions, every one of these solutions, including putting a price on carbon, requires separate legislation, and each piece of legislation takes a lot of time. Putting a price on carbon is one piece of legislation that jumpstarts all of the other solutions. So for example, if oil and gas is more expensive, plastics made out of oil and gas, imagine plastic pollution going away because it costs more. So how do you put a price on carbon? And the answer is by building political will to pass a law in the House and the Senate in Washington, or maybe even in California, because California has such a giant economy. So right now, we've got a sweet spot for action. We've got a president and vice president who believe in climate change and are committed to doing something about it. We've got a slim majority of legislators in the Senate and in the House who want to do something about climate change. But this may not last long. The midterm elections, which are in November 2022, typically result in a major shift in the balance of power. So what generally happens is that somewhere between, not every time, but generally what happens is somewhere between 30 to 40 legislators in the House and the Senate will flip to the party opposite from who's in the White House. So when that happens, the golden window of opportunity will close. So there is a bipartisan bill in Congress right now called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. It's also known as HR 2307. This bill puts a price on carbon, and 100% of the fee that is collected is distributed equally to all people living in the United States, because the government doesn't keep the money, it doesn't grow government, which should appeal to conservative voters. It is the socially just form of pricing carbon, because lower and most middle income people would receive more money back than what they would pay out for increased costs in the form of a monthly check that goes directly to you. So high income people who fly more, consume more, will pay more, and they will get the same amount in their check as you and I pay, as you and I receive. They will pay the lion's share of this fee, but they can afford it. This is a market solution. The fee increases every year in a predictable, transparent way. Business can prepare and innovate, and no one is telling you how to get your energy. And the monthly check goes directly to you, not a government program. So to summarize, HR 2307 is the best tool to get us to net zero by 2050. Net zero means that we're removing greenhouse gases at the same rate we're producing them. It will make clean energy relatively affordable. It will put money in everyone's pockets with no restrictions. It will be good for your health and will save lives. And it fits conservative and liberal values. Now, I want you to know that there are several bills that put a price on carbon waiting for a vote in Congress. But this is the one that gives all the money back to the people. If you're listening to the news and you hear about a bill that's going to cost people more money for energy and cause financial hardship, they are not talking about this bill. They are not. And there's a border adjustment. So this is the part that helps the rest of the world to also put a price on carbon. When goods are imported from a country that doesn't have this fee, a fee or tariff is charged, and that money is also returned to you. So it feels like a tariff to the country that's importing goods into the United States. And this provides an incentive for other countries to do the same. And I want to give you a real life example of what's going on right now. The EU already has a price on carbon and is set to start a border adjustment soon. They haven't set a date, but they know they're going to do it. The EU is Russia's major trading partner, and now Russia is talking about putting a price on carbon. So, as the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world, US leadership is essential to address the problem of global climate change. And I'm going to tell you now that the most important thing that you can do for the climate is to help build political will to get this bill, HR 2307, passed. And I need your help. So here are some examples of things you can do. You can speak at local government meetings and ask them to create a resolution in favor of HR 2307. You can speak to your employer and ask them to do the same. And this is very important, particularly if you work for a large corporation. If you do work for a large corporation, I really want you to reach out to me, and I'll put you in touch with someone in CCL in Washington, and together they can help do this with you. You can also reach out to local radio stations and TV stations asking for programming about this. There is no programming about this. And it is baffling to me why this isn't in the media. And honestly, this is what prompted me to do this, to do these meetings. You can write letters to newspapers and just try to get media coverage of any type You can talk to friends and family and ask them to watch this presentation. You can talk about climate change over the dinner table, but the most important thing is to keep talking about climate change. Keep it front and central. And I want you to know, I like the live interactive meetings. Some of you are going to be watching this as a recording. It's perfectly fine with, I do these presentations twice a week live, every Monday and every Friday, and you can email me and I'll send you the link and let you know when that's happening. But the big thing is that we have got to keep talking about climate change. If you don't have the bandwidth or more time for the things that I talked about in the last slide, there is another way. You can email or call your legislators before you even get out of bed. And I'm going to share a link to make this really, really easy for you. Before I do that, I want to explain how your letters and calls are processed and how to make them count. And I want you to know that I got this information from interviewing legislator aides. And these are the people who tally and report constituent calls and letters. And I've talked to a lot of them. In fact, just last week, I called Senator Padilla's office and Senator Feinstein's office to make sure nothing had changed. Nothing had. And this is what everyone says. Senators and representatives are being flooded with calls and emails. When you contact them, provide your information in the shortest and easiest way possible. I've been told the aides read the subject line and the first two sentences of an email, and that's it. So the most effective way to catch their attention is through quantity of calls and emails. And I have to tell you, a lot of people, myself included, have been inspired to write long personal email letters. But really, the most effective way to bring attention to your issue is to keep it short and keep it daily or weekly. And this is important. Form emails sent frequently are more effective than long personal letters because they're more efficient. Form emails are just as effective as personal emails. So understand that you do not need to take the time to write a long personal email. You can just send a form email. I'm not talking about petitions. I'm talking about form emails. So calling or emailing every day is about 25 times more effective than calling or sending an email once a month. You want to keep it fast and you want to keep it frequent. The aides do not tally calls over the weekend. So if you're doing it on Monday, you probably don't need to do it on Saturday and Sunday. So now I'm going to tell you the most important thing that you can do for the climate, and it takes less than 2 minutes. So I'm going to share a form letter. Madeline, can you post it in the chat in case people don't want to use the QR code? Is anyone there?
Yeah, Madeline just posted it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So you can scan this QR code and it will take you to a form email. And I'm going to do this with you. And I want all of us to shout out, done, when you've completed it. And I want you to know the first time you do it, if you do it on a computer, you'll have to fill in your name and address. They do need your phone number because the legislators require phone numbers to make sure you're a real person. And no one's going to bother you. No one's going to call you. You will receive a form email back letting you know that the legislators received your email. And that's it. No one's going to use your personal information. Don't be afraid of that. If you do this on a computer, the second time you do it and every time after, it will take literally 10 seconds because all those fields will autofill. Depending on your phone, you may need to fill in your personal information each time, so it may take 2 minutes. I'm done because I've done it a few times before. Anyone else?
I was almost done, but I forgot to put in my prefix in my
Okay.
name. They insist on a prefix.
Yes, they do.
So send. I'm done.
Great. Was that easy?
Done. Oops.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy, right? Easy peasy.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the most important thing you can do to stop climate change. And that is hard to wrap your head around because we've been thinking about it so long and hard. But this is it. Now, the thing is, I need your help spreading the word all over the country. And chances are you've got friends and relatives living in other states, other parts of our state. And if you want, the times when I do the weekly calls, the weekly meetings are Pacific time. If you've got family on the East Coast and you want to do a family reunion with me, set it up. I'll be there. And then you can stay on the Zoom meeting afterwards, just like it's a family reunion.
Elaine, I have a question.
Yes.
That I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt in the middle. I thought I was catching you at a breath. So a reason that a lot of us resist doing a lot of these things is once, like if you say you give to the Democratic Party and you're on Go Blue or something, every day you get 200 requests for donations. Can you tell us what that's going to look like with CCL?
You won't get anything.
Because we just gave our...
No, you won't. No, you won't. So there's a box on that page that you actually have to click asking for information about CCL. If you don't, it's not like you have to unclick it. It is unclicked now. You have to actually click, yes, I want to receive information. Nobody's going to ask you for donations. Nobody's going to ask you for anything unless you yourself check that box. And they're not going to ask for donations. They're just going to send you information about Citizens Climate Lobby. I have to tell you, Citizens Climate Lobby is a great organization. And I urge all of you to join CCL, but you don't have to. All I'm really asking you to do is send these letters off every week. Put that link in your calendar as a weekly reoccurring reminder and do it for the next 6 months. But I want to thank you very much. I don't know who asked that question, but thank you. You will not receive, CCL is a very honorable nonprofit. They are not going to do that to you. And let me tell you, the legislators, they're not going to reach out to you either. You will get an email confirming that they received your email, but that's it. Any other comments or questions?
Someone asked what CCL is, and I put Citizens Climate Lobby in the chat.
Yes. Yeah.
And
all right.
There's some technical questions about the MIT model, but maybe we can leave those to the end.
Yes, so I do want you to know that this presentation is not a presentation introducing you or helping you to understand the En-ROADS website. If you go to En-ROADS, and you have to look at it on your computer, not a phone or a tablet, if you type in EN-ROADS, you will bring up the website, and in that website, all of your questions will be answered and then some. The reason I included that 2-minute video is to introduce En-ROADS to you, to help you understand that this is real science. It is very accurate. It is not playing up, making things look better or making things look worse. It's middle of the road information. I think Judy wanted to ask a question. So let me just say before we move on, this is the website for Citizens Climate Lobby. I live in San Mateo, so this is my chapter. If you're interested in finding out what your increased fees would be for energy during the first year and what you would get back in the form of a check, that would be this last link at the bottom, the carbon fee and dividend calculator. Again, this is for the first year, and the fees start out low the first year, and then they ramp up pretty quickly. And I was going to go back and do the poll again, but my slides aren't advancing again. Oh, there we go. So now I want to ask you how you are feeling about what to do to stop climate change. Has anyone gone to a 3? Judy, do you have a question or are you holding up fingers?
I don't have
Madeline?
a question. No,
Okay.
I asked my question already. Thanks.
Okay. And Madeline, what are people thinking? What are they responding? Are they putting it in the chat?
Well, let's see. Someone put in 2.5, which is kind of I'm probably at 2.75. More 2.5s. We don't have a lot here in chat. Any numbers from YouTube? Still a 2. Two, 3, another 2.75, 2.3.
These people are very accurate. All right. Well, I'm sorry I didn't help you to feel like 3s, because I think that when we feel confident that we know what to do, and we can act, and it's easy and it can fit into our lives, I'm hoping that will give you hope. And I'm really curious, the people who still say they're number 2s, are you planning on sending in these form emails every week? Or are you just looking at this going, this isn't going to work?
Elaine, there's a science teacher who would like to unmute and ask you some questions. I guess he has some, he's not sure about some of the things he said. Would it be all right for him to go ahead and do that?
I just thought
Sure.
maybe she should finish this part before we get to that. Just, yeah, some of the people who are 2s are going to do this. And I think part of it is, at least for me, that we felt discouraged for so long. It's partly a pandemic thing. Keep expecting another anvil to drop.
Yeah, our emotions become habits, and it's hard. It is hard to trust when we're so horrified and we feel so beaten down. I get it. I mean, honestly, why do I do this 40 hours a week? I'm horrified. I love all those plants and those pollinators, and it's hard. The air is hot, the fires, the drought, it's horrifying. It's horrifying that it's gotten this bad, that we haven't done anything over 70 years. It's terrible. I do high school outreach. I have to face these students and help them to find their voice and stand up for themselves and speak. And yeah, they're angry. But I think we also need to be able to pivot and look at information that I've offered to you this evening and make the best use of that information and make this change happen. And we cannot sit by watching this anymore. We cannot be bystanders. You know, I think you look at what happened with the Holocaust. There were plenty of people who were horrified. And there were most of those people were bystanders. You have got to be able to stand up. And this is not difficult. This is 2 minutes once a week. I mean, no one's going to turn around and arrest you for doing this. This is easy. You certainly can do more, but for God's sakes, please send that email off every week. Talk to your friends and family, spread the word about this, and make the change happen. It is up to us. This idea that we have politicians and we hire them to do a job and that they should stand up and do a good job, that is not what they do. They watch what their constituents want, and that's what they do. We have to create the political will to stop this nightmare.
Okay. All right. We have some questions now. I think maybe, would it be okay to start with questions?
Sure. So I don't know that I'll be able to answer all of them, but if you email me with your questions, I will make sure they all get answered. And I will post in the chat my email address.
Okay. One question is, who are the main sponsors of the bill that you were talking about?
So that changes all the time. There are, I think there's 75, 76 co-sponsors now. They're mostly Democrats. There are some Republicans. Mitt Romney just came out in favor of carbon pricing, a carbon fee and dividend. He did not mention HR 2307. HR 2307 is a bill that's in the House. The Senate's going to have to write their own bill. But they are, there are Republicans. This bill should be bipartisan because it is, it uses conservative values and liberal values. And one of the reasons I really believe in this bill is that lasting legislation is bipartisan legislation.
Actually, someone also put a URL in the chat to look at the sponsors. So that's very helpful.
Great, thank you.
Another question is, any suggestions for non-citizens how to take action? Maybe change the wording of the email?
No, let me tell you, the thing is that students who are under 18 and non-citizens, they're all constituents. It doesn't matter. They can still call or email their legislators. If you live in their district, they will listen to you. That's a really good question. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
And I'm going to just ask my question because I think it's easier than Nico's. So isn't it also important for us to be sending letters about voting rights protection so that our legislatures continue to have to pay attention to us?
Yes. So I phone bank every Saturday into what's it, Colorado? What is that state? My mind's blanking out. Anyway, they're into, oh my God, what is the name of the state? Right next to New Mexico.
Arizona.
Arizona, thank you. I phone bank into Arizona every Saturday to try to get constituents to call their senators to modify the filibuster so that the For the People Act and the John Lewis Act can pass. Super important. That's a whole separate issue from this. The filibuster, if this goes through the Senate as a standalone bill, there's a very good chance it will not pass unless the filibuster is modified. And so something like this might be included in a budget reconciliation bill that would bypass the filibuster. So hopefully people know that the filibuster is not part of the Constitution. It was a rule that was created about 60 years ago, whose primary purpose was to block civil rights legislation. Back then, it was only used for those purposes, and now it's being used all the time. It's the number one reason that nothing really gets done in Washington. And it's a rule which does not require 60% to get rid of it, because it's a rule. It only requires more than 50% to modify or get rid of it. And there are exceptions to the filibuster. So anything having to do with the budget or the Supreme Court does not follow the filibuster rules. You do not need a 60% majority.
Okay, so I'm going to turn over this question to Nico, so he can ask his question.
Hi, yeah. So I think that when you were presenting the En-ROADS tool, which is a very cool tool, it sounded as though it wasn't quite clear what the relationship was that you were describing between the carbon pricing and the reduction in non-renewable energy sources. So, for example, when you were talking about reducing the use of coal, for example, when you put the slider all the way to the left, that's and you described it as getting rid of coal.
Yes. So Nico, you are so smart. You are so smart, because what you were thinking of is, okay, how do you can't just like bomb the refineries, right? How do you get rid of coal and oil and yeah, you're really smart.
A different question.
Yeah.
What I was
So the way, so the way you do it is by providing tax incentives to get rid of it.
So that's sort of what I was going to say, is that when you put the slider for coal all the way to the left, that's not what, as you described, getting rid of it. That's just taxing it more. If you want to simulate getting rid of coal, you just click on these three buttons and you put the slider of reduction in coal utilization up to 100%. And that is significant. So what you were talking about was just taxing coal, oil, and natural gas. And you were saying, oh, that doesn't reduce the warming as much. But if you set all of those utilization reductions to 100, that actually does make a significant difference.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that what you're describing as getting rid of, the model is only modeling as increasing the taxes of. And
right.
So
yes.
The reason, as you said, the reason that the model uses the carbon pricing so effectively is that basically it is doing that same thing of gradually reducing the amount of these non-renewables that we're using.
Yes. Yeah, but the thing is that to get rid of the oil, gas, and coal and methane, you need separate pieces of legislation, and that is going to be extremely difficult.
Right. My point was that when you put the slider to the left, you cannot describe that as getting rid of coal.
Okay.
That's not the same.
Right. Okay. So Nico, I have to apologize. I do somewhat simplify what is going on, because if I gave all the detail for everything, it would be overwhelming for most people.
I just think it helps
not for you
understand to realize that the reason carbon pricing is useful is because it does do that thing that you were also describing. All right, I'll stop bothering you. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. There's another question here, Lyndon. Who do you phone bank through? Let's put that in the chat.
I about phone. Yeah. So are you talking about phone banking to modify the filibuster?
Yes.
Okay. That is Swing Left Peninsula or Swing Left San Francisco.
Okay.
I love it.
And let's see. Did we get all the URLs that people asked for in there?
Actually, let's see. Someone just asked a really, Kevin Liu just said, John asked, was there legislation passed in 2019 with the exact same title? That was HR 763, and it never went to a vote. It had the same title. It was slightly different. There was a regulatory pause written into that bill. And this bill has no regulatory pause. It never went to vote. And when the new Congress is sworn in, any bill that has not been voted on gets thrown out and they have to rewrite it.
Okay. There's a number of comments in here. But I think at this point, Lyndon asked when 2307 was introduced.
I believe it was in March.
I actually haven't looked up those things, but are most of those things, if you go to that URL where they talk about the bill, do they give you those stats? Let's see
Which stats are you talking about?
Like besides sponsors, do they tell you other things?
I don't know the exact, I haven't looked at the exact URL you're talking about. I can tell you what the emission targets are and what the fees are. I don't know if anyone's asking about that. But the big thing, you know, I kind of don't want to get caught in the weeds since we're CNPS. I don't want to get caught in the weeds. I think what is important to understand is that climatologists and both Democratic and Republican economists believe that this would work. The economists believe that this would be good for the economy, and the climatologists say that this would work. So this is an effort that is well worth doing. I saw Robin's criticism of my presentation, but Robin, I'm fine with you criticizing my presentation. What I really hope is that you will still go ahead and send these letters off once a week. And I'd love to hear back from you, Robin.
Linda, another question is, are there others like you doing this outreach?
I have not heard of anyone doing a presentation just like this that is clear and concise and has a specific action. I just don't know why, and that's why I started doing these. But I will do them for anyone, anywhere. Put together a group of 10 people and I'll be there. So this is I'm doing 4 this week. I won't do more than one a day because I'll lose my voice, but.
Well, there's a lot of compliments in the chat, and then there's also information. I just want to point out that if you have at the bottom of chat where you can type, there's 3 dots. If you click on those 3 dots, you can save chat, and it's saved to your own computer. So you don't have to retype these things. You can just save the chat. I don't think you can do that on YouTube. I think you have to, I don't know. Vivian, is there a way to save the chat on YouTube? But
on YouTube, you'd have to basically go through and do a choose all and then copy and paste.
Copy and paste. Yeah, you'd have to copy and paste. That's what I thought. Okay. So if there are no more there are no more questions, so one more question just showed up. Will your slides be posted?
I can.
So Vivian, can we put these on our website?
Yeah, sure. I'll work that out with Elaine, and then I'll send out a message, and I'll also link it on the description on the YouTube. So when the YouTube recording is there, it's there right now. You can go and share it with your friends. But I will be adding a description later, and I'll include as many of these URLs as I can as part of that description, so that it'll be easily accessible, as well as a link to the slides. If Elaine, you and I we'll work it out, and we'll make sure that information gets posted.
Okay, great. So I'm really curious. There was a criticism of the presentation, and I would really like to hear from those people if they are so unhappy with this presentation that they're not going to send the letters, or if you will send the letters, and some part of this presentation didn't work for you. Does anyone? There's one person in particular. She might not be in the meeting anymore. Okay, well, anyway, we'll let it go. All right. Because the reason I'm asking is that's really helpful information for me, because I always try to make these presentations as productive as possible, as easily understandable and productive as possible.
Okay, I posted a link to our YouTube channel. There's a couple more questions. The chat, so I believe the chat messages from the presentation show up in YouTube. No, they don't.
Yeah, and in fact, the YouTube chat will disappear as well. So you won't be able to see them on the replay, because as soon as I edit it, which I will, I usually clean those up. So they will not, all of this, you've got to copy and keep your own copy of it if you want it right now.
So if you're on Zoom, use those 3 dots to copy it. If you're on YouTube, do a copy and paste. Select all the chat messages and do copy and paste. And one more question. If anyone knows if the Biden infrastructure bill has elements about climate change.
It does. It does not include a price on carbon, but it has elements that will help the grid to be to update the grid and to create more green jobs, put in more green energy. I believe it also includes electric car charge stations and things like that. So all of this helps, but we need a price on carbon.
And have our local representatives stated their position so far, or do they still need convincing?
So, it's really interesting. The students I mentor just had a climate change action march and rally this last Saturday in Central Park in San Mateo. And our state senator, Josh Becker, and our state representative, Kevin Mullen, were both there. They said, of course, they believe are well-versed in cap and trade, but they said it wasn't working. The price was too low, and they are all for putting a price on carbon. And I don't know that they're quite at the point of getting rid of cap and trade, but because California has really been invested in that, but it's not working, and they freely admit that.
Okay. And somebody asked for the website for En-ROADS again.
So if you just type in EN-ROADS on your computer, it will come up.
It's in here already. And did you see the question about opposition? Oh my God, these questions are coming in. Opposition from the fossil fuel industry, and what sources of info do you recommend to stay informed?
So I would join Citizens Climate Lobby. They send out a weekly newsletter. They also have a monthly national speaker, and I have learned so much, and these speakers are really knowledgeable, everything about how to talk to people about climate change. How the last one was about how they're doing this modeling, they're actually creating ways for trucks to charge as they're driving down freeways. I mean, it's incredible. So join Citizens Climate Lobby, go to your chapter meetings, listen, watch the national calls every month. And let's see, then you asked a question about who is opposing this bill. What is really interesting, and I should have mentioned this before, is that a lot of the very liberal legislators are against this legislation because they want the government to keep the money for special projects. And the issue I have is that that's going to leave a lot of people out. A lot of people are going to end up paying higher costs, and they're not going to get, they may get some monthly check because maybe the government wouldn't keep the whole thing, but they're not going to get as much back probably to cover their entire costs. And there are a lot of people, a lot of issues that aren't going to be in those included in the special projects that they want. So for example, the Sierra Club and the NRDC, they don't like this. They want the government to keep the money for special projects. They want to put a price on carbon, but they don't want to give the money back. And then, of course, there are plenty of Republicans who say that there's no such thing as climate change, and so why do you need to do this?
Well, the beautiful thing about this design is that it helps the people who are most impacted, you know, poor, marginalized people, and supports, it doesn't make them take the burden of switching over to a green economy. And there's a cost to having the government keep it and hand it out again. Anyway, my 2 cents.
Right. Right.
So,
and you know, the truth of the matter is that these monthly checks will go out to everyone whom the government can contact. So there certainly will be people who don't want the government to find them, right? And I don't have an answer for that. So, you know, if you don't want the government to have a name and address, yeah, you're probably not going to get that monthly check. But, you know, there are things written into the bill so that if you don't receive the first check, you can contact, you know, I don't know the exact office, but you can reach out to the government and let them know that you haven't received their check so they can add your name and address. But there are people who just don't want to be found, and there's no answer for that.
there's a question about, do you have names for liberal politicians who oppose this? Or is it?
Well, I don't have a current list in my head. But I think we know who the most liberal politicians are. And they're not just people who are in the news every day. There was a push to have a price on carbon in Washington. And I think it was the Sierra Club and some of the other groups lobbied some of the Democratic legislators there, and it went down. It didn't, these are state politicians, because Washington State was going to do this.
Interesting.
It is really interesting how people can squabble and nothing gets done, you know, until it's just like, gosh, if we could just get together and work this out and stop fighting each other.
Armando asked a question about how do we anticipate the average person will spend these monthly checks? Well, I think we have a model in PPE checks. The PP, not whatever, some of the pandemic relief checks that went to people were largely spent on shelter, food, education, people who really needed money spent it on the things that would actually make their situation better. And I would think, in the guaranteed income experiment in Stockton, we also saw that people tended to use this money to improve themselves.
And Armando, I think the answer is people will decide for themselves, and nobody knows better what you need than yourself. To have a social program decide what you need. It's like, no, you know what you need for yourself better than anybody. And this is a check that you would receive, and you make the decision.
You can also look up about guaranteed income in Finland, and you can see this isn't the same thing, but I mean, just seeing about how giving money to people actually tends to have very good effects. I mean, it's actual data. It's been tried in Canada too.
Right. Right. And like I said, there's that link that I had on the last slide so that you can actually see what your increased costs would be per month and what the monthly check would be during the first year. Yeah. So I hope that this presentation gave all of us a different perspective, and will give us something to do that's tangible and that we can all do. I hope that, the little voice in the back of your head saying, oh, this will never work, that you'll shut that off and just stop being a bystander and act, because this is how change happens. We cannot just sit by and watch this happen and wring our hands. We can't. We don't have the time.
Well, thank you for your time, Elaine. I mean, this has been amazing. And I think, I've seen a lot of people commenting on how they feel more empowered now. That's important.
Good.
And I mean,
Good.
This is recorded, so everybody share it. Get the word out. Elaine's, Elaine, you're willing to come to people if they want you, but it's right there. So if you've got a friend, send the link out. Just send out that recording. Get people involved, and then if they want to spread the word, they can contact Elaine, and she'll talk to them.
Yeah, particularly if it's a different time zone. It's hard if you've got friends and family on the East Coast, because the regular presentations I have are Monday at 6:30 and Friday at 5:30 Pacific time. But I've done presentations for families on the East Coast, and they went great. People loved it. So you just put together a group, reach out to me. My email address is in the chat. And for people who are watching the recording, it's ESALINGER@mac.com. Is that it?
Yeah, you've got a lot of things, and but we are, well, Madeline, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's all.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks
Great.
again, Elaine. That was really wonderful. I really appreciate you being willing to do this for us. And I guess I'm going to be wrapping this up. We'll have another talk next week, and then Elaine will be back again in 2 weeks, sharing her garden, which is truly remarkable and beautiful and wonderful. So I'm going to be ending the session now, and hope to see some of you back in the coming weeks. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Madeline. Thanks, Kelvin.